Good morning. This is Northern Light for August 10th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
State officials are hosting a listening session in Saranac Lake on Friday about how it should spend the $4 billion environmental bond voters approved last fall. Also on the show, the National Weather Service confirmed there was an EF3 tornado in Lewis County Monday evening. Wind speeds peaked at 140 miles an hour.
It also did a lot of damage at the Snow Ridge Ski Resort and the West Wind Motel in Turin.
Paint, hikes, guitars, volleyballs, all are part of Gary Casagrane's life in the Adirondacks.
The name of this piece is Adirondack Inspired. It's a personal one. It'll never be for sale. There's a lot in here. There's the texture, edges, contrast. I mean, I could go on and on about it.
We talk with him about 40 years of creating classic art inspired by the Adirondacks. His new show opens tonight at Tupper Arts.
All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Gray & Gray & Associates, CPAs, an accounting and financial services firm in Northern New York, with offices in Canton, Potsdam, and Spring Hill, Florida. GrayCPAS.com. And AdirondackExplorer.com and AdirondackAlmanac.com, presenting daily updated news on public policy, environmental issues, local communities in the Adirondack Park.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. U.S. Customs and Border Protection is planning to build a new facility in the Thousand Islands to replace its old one on Wellesley Island. They've been considering a site in Clayton known as Blind Bay, which has drawn the opposition of environmentalists and local residents. But as Lucy Grindon reports, the CBP will now consider other sites as well.
Congresswoman Claudia Tenney announced yesterday that Customs and Border Protection has started looking at other possible building sites besides Blind Bay. CBP wants a new, larger facility to accommodate more agents. They also want space for a detention center, working dogs, and boats, so one advantage of Blind Bay is its water access. But some area residents and Green Group Save the River have been trying to stop CBP from building there. They say Blind Bay is a pristine natural environment and a crucial breeding ground for the muskie, a popular sport fish. Tenney and Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand have also voiced opposition to the Blind Bay site. Tenney's statement says she's been bringing community concerns to her meetings with CBP officials. She said, quote, "We have made it extraordinarily clear that the North Country does not want this station constructed in Blind Bay." Now, Tenney says CBP is considering other locations. The agency has also promised to be more transparent as the Wellesley Island relocation process continues. Lucy Grindon, North Country Public Radio.
Governor Kathy Hochul announced yesterday that the state will provide up to $3 million in emergency repair grants to help fix homes damaged by recent floods. In the North Country, low to moderate income homeowners in Clinton, Essex, and Hamilton counties may be eligible to apply. Their primary residences must be located in those counties, and their incomes must be at or below 80% of the area median income. The governor's office says the funding is for urgent repairs needed to bring homes to safe and habitable conditions. Grants of up to $50,000 will be awarded. Applications open on Friday, and we have more information about the program on our website, ncpr.org.
Last fall, voters statewide passed the Environmental Bond Act. It gave New York permission to borrow more than $4 billion to spend on climate mitigation and the environment. Now the state is asking New Yorkers how it should spend that money. You could share your ideas about the Bond Act with state officials at a listening session tomorrow at the Town Hall in downtown Saranac Lake from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell spoke with DEC Commissioner Basil Sagos about the Bond Act and what it could mean for the Adirondack North Country.
The Environmental Bond Act is really a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make the state more resilient in the face of a changing world, right? Changing climate in particular. And the Adirondacks is unfortunately no stranger to the idea of severe weather. We canceled the last Bond Act listening session in Saranac Lake because it was literally scheduled for the week of these terrible storms that went through Long Lake and Newcomb and did incredible damage to the built and natural environment. So when you look at a bond act like this, $4.2 billion, a statewide bond act that has as its intent to reduce flood damage, to mitigate the impacts of climate change, to protect our landscape, to protect our water supplies, this is a transformational moment for us as a state.
Yeah, what are some specific projects in the Adirondack North Country that you envision getting funded by the Environmental Bond Act?
Well, look, and just take the recent example of flooding in Long Lake. It was a simple culvert on a small creek, feeding into Long Lake that couldn't take the flows of that intense weather. And as a result, the water overtopped the culvert, washed out the roadway, and really seriously impacted the surrounding buildings. A Bond Act investment in that case would be a wider culvert, right? That acknowledges that we're now seeing more intense rain, more intense precipitation. And that's a very minor investment in really a very important outcome, the outcome being the sustainability of Long Lake as a tourism destination or as a hamlet where people can live. There are other really important investments to make, of course, setting aside land, buying land for the purpose of water preservation and habitat preservation, farmland protection. The farms are a backbone of our upstate economy, right? Being able to set aside farmland or create buffers around farms as well, super important to keep those farms vibrant for many years to come.
I've heard from environmental groups and local officials that, sometimes grant money from the state can be complicated to apply for and then to use. What would you say to folks who think, there might be just too many hoops to jump through to get funding from the Bond Act?
Well, we're always looking to make these really important pots of money more accessible to municipalities across the state. I mean, it is an enormous amount of money, and we need to make sure we spend it the right way. So we've spent quite a bit of time over the last few months to begin drafting the criteria for eligibility. So what projects would be eligible? Obviously, not everything is bondable, right? You can't bond overnight stay at a hotel. You need to be able to bond something that will physically last for 10 years or more. So it is really important to put guidelines around those dollars so that we're spending those public dollars wisely. And ultimately, getting the projects, getting the funding pots out onto the street as quickly as possible, having quick turnaround times for review of those projects, and then ultimately helping municipalities meet their objectives through the creation of these projects. I mean, all of these things are going to be happening at the same time. And I think there's some lessons learned from the last Bond Act for sure, where it took quite a bit of time to spend some of the money. There are even some dollars left over from the last Bond Act. So I anticipate that this money, this Bond Act will be spent aggressively, certainly over the next 5 years to put those dollars into communities all across the state.
So the last Bond Act passed by New Yorkers preserved more than 150,000 acres in the Adirondacks. This one sets aside $650 million for land preservation. How would you or other state officials like to see that money used in the Adirondacks? Are there any kind of dream preservation projects in the park?
Well, I'm sure everyone has a plot of land that they'd like to set aside. I mean, we certainly have done enormous work over the last, we'll call it 50 years, setting aside land in the Adirondacks. We want to leave some of the ambition to the public. We want to hear those ideas. That's why we do listening sessions, so that we're not just talking to the public about the Bond Act, but ultimately hearing from the public about where they want those dollars spent. And yes, you're right. Land acquisition will be a huge focus of this. It will be an untraditional focus in some ways, right? We want to emphasize smaller plots of land in urban areas, for example, where you have communities without access to green space or parks. That would be one end of the Bond Act. The other end of the Bond Act might be the acquisition of larger pieces of land, whether it's the Adirondacks or Catskills or Western New York.
I wonder if you could just kind of paint a picture of New York State, 10 or 20 years from now. How do you think this $4.2 billion Environmental Bond Act could change the landscape of the state? I
certainly see a greener state, a more resilient state, a state that can better withstand the changing climate. We, of course, felt it with Superstorm Sandy down in New York City, Long Island, back in 2012. And it feels like every year we're seeing more and more of these impacts. I'm hoping that with this investment, we can turn the tide and better position the state to withstand what is to come, which is unfortunately more severe weather. So when you see a community get cut off, as many have been through these storms, how quickly can it get back on its feet? And ultimately, what does that mean for its sustainability, its economy? It means everything. You know, when you have Long Lake and Newcomb shut down for a week or two, I mean, that's life and death. It really is. And it really means everything when it comes to the sustainability of a place like the Adirondacks from the hamlet's perspective. So I'm hoping that this potential investment will excite the public, give them a sense of what's possible in the years to come. Start not identifying pet projects, but identifying projects that will really have an impact on the future of the state. And we're there to work directly with the communities for the years to come.
That was DEC Commissioner Basil Sagos speaking with Emily Russell. Sagos and other state officials will be hosting a Bond Act listening session tomorrow from 11 to 1 at the Town Hall Auditorium in downtown Saranac Lake.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:11. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, Tupper Art celebrates the work of Adirondack artist Gary Cassegrain with a new exhibit that opens tonight. And we've got a profile of the artist coming up in just a few minutes here on Northern Light.
This is music by Mark Corey out of Watertown. His music is part of our Underscore project. Check it out online. Music by Mark Corey and other regional bands and musicians. ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by St. Lawrence Health, committed to keeping the community healthy and safe by providing vaccines for patients to strengthen their defenses. StLawrenceHealthSystem.org. And by Rickard Environmental in Keene, New York, keeping Adirondack waters clean by providing drinking water and wastewater compliance services. Learn more at rickardenvironmental.com.
The National Weather Service in Buffalo confirmed an EF3 tornado touchdown in Lewis County during Monday night's severe weather. That category means a strong tornado and is right below a violent EF4 or EF5. Catherine Wheeler reports.
The tornado started at 7:42 on Monday evening in the southern part of the town of Lewis. It spun for 16 miles and had a width of 700 yards. It ended in the town of Turin at 8:14. National Weather Service meteorologist Liz Jerkowski says winds peaked at 140 miles per hour.
There's a lot of trees that were broken throughout. We've seen places where there's damage to two homes, where a roof was uplifted off of the home, or a wall blown out of a garage.
Jerkowski says the most damage from the tornado occurred between the Snow Ridge Ski Resort and the West Wind Motel in Turin. At the resort, many trees are down and there's extensive damage to buildings. According to the resort's Facebook page, all 3 chairlifts were damaged in the storm and a tree was put through the cab window of the snow grooming machine. No injuries have been reported from the storm. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
The city of Watertown's engineer was fired after allegedly driving while intoxicated. According to the Watertown Daily Times, 45-year-old Michael Delaney was arrested Friday afternoon in the City Hall parking lot. Police charged him with aggravated driving while intoxicated. The Times reports he allegedly had a blood alcohol content of 0.22, almost 3 times the legal limit. He's scheduled to appear in court next week.
And Plattsburgh's interim police chief is trying to get his old job back. Nathan Bud York is a retired state police investigator who served 3 terms as Warren County Sheriff. According to WNYT-TV, he's running a write-in campaign to unseat Republican Sheriff Jim LaFar this fall. York was appointed interim Plattsburgh City Police Chief in early 2022. Plattsburgh Mayor Chris Rosenquist says York will remain in the position until further notice, though that could change based on the election.
All this week, we're featuring life and culture around upstate New York, thanks to our public radio colleagues around the state. Today, regional foods. If you're in Binghamton on the southern tier, the local delicacy is a speedy. It's a cubed marinated meat sandwich. Last weekend was the city's annual celebration of its signature dish with a car show, live music, hot air balloons, and of course, plenty of speedies. WSKG's Sydney Lee went to Speedy Fest and sent this audio postcard.
It's a cloudy early evening as I'm arriving on Saturday's Speedy Fest. Now is kind of the perfect weather because it's hot, but it's not absolutely eating me alive. As I'm entering the park, I can see a lot of food trucks and a giant red inflatable pig in the distance. The sounds from the concert are kind of leaking into the entrance, so that way you can hear the music as you walk in. I'm trying to get an original Speedy. The tent that they have for it is huge. The back is lined with so many grills, and there's 2 huge lines to order. Kind of like between those lines, there's a giant inflatable of their original Speedy sauce right in front of their tent. I managed to talk to Andrew Salamita for a minute while he was between handing out the original Speedies at the festival.
So Rob Salamita, who's my father, he co-founded the Speedy Fest back in 1983 with Paul Van Savage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of a fun deal, right? And so we've been a family business. My sister's here helping make up the subs. My mom's cutting bread in the back that just came in fresh this morning. So we've been a family business the whole time.
What do you think is your favorite one?
I always like the lamb. I think that for me, the lamb, it just the Salamita marinade works so well with the gaminess of it, and it's something that typically don't cook with whenever I'm at home. So it's nice to always have it as a special treat.
The balloons are another huge part of Speedy Fest, and before they get inflated, I'm talking to Roger Hooper about his balloon before he flies it.
I have a black with yellow and green chevrons on it. So it's black, mainly black, but, very, very bright, neon yellow, neon green. Been coming here since 1999. 1999 was my first year with that balloon. But I've been flying here since the middle 80s. So I've had the Speedy Fest very sweet in my heart for most of my career.
The balloons are starting to inflate, and I've never seen hot air balloons inflate or take off before, so I'm excited to watch this. With that, I'm Sydney Lee.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, a love for life in the Adirondacks, volleyball, guitars, and painting. We'll meet artist Gary Cassegrain in just a minute. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note coming up at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Yeah, the Weather Service is predicting some more rain, maybe thunderstorms across the region today, tonight, and possibly into tomorrow morning as well, with partly cloudy skies later in the day on Friday. So scattered showers, thunderstorms today, but an 80% chance of rain today and tonight. Highs mid to upper 70s. Winds out of the southwest. Lows near 60 overnight tonight. And then tomorrow, partly cloudy with highs in the afternoon in the mid-70s for much of the region. Right now, mostly cloudy skies, 65 degrees in Canton.
Tupper Arts in downtown Tupper Lake invites you to stop by tonight to check out new pieces by an Adirondack artist known for his classic work. Gary Casagrane's Adirondack-inspired exhibit opens with a reception starting at 5 o'clock and the unveiling of several new paintings. After driving by his studio several times over the years, our Todd Moe finally got a chance to stop in for a conversation about art. It's a space where Gary paints and his wife, Barb, helps with framing and managing the home gallery.
Not surprisingly, Barb and Gary Casagrane's home, nestled just off Route 3 near Massawepie Lake, is filled with Adirondack art. It's been Gary's sole career for 4 decades, and he's understandably proud.
So come on down, I'll show you.
The couple give me a tour of the house, from the front formal gallery to Gary's studio and the living spaces.
There's stuff all over. Like I say, I've done over the years a lot of drawings. I enjoy charcoal and pastel and Conti, and it's just, they're fun to do. This one here, the name of the show at the Tupper Arts Center is going to be called Adirondack Inspired. And the name of this piece is Adirondack Inspired. It's a personal one. It'll never be for sale. There's a lot in here. There's the texture, edges, contrast. I mean, I could go on and on about it. And I like it.
A self-taught artist, Gary Casagrane was raised in Tupper Lake and began selling his art as a teenager at flea markets and community festivals because there were no art galleries at the time. He and Barb, who also grew up in Tupper Lake, owned a gallery in town for several years. Today, their home is a studio, workshop, and gallery. The beautiful birch bark frames that enhance some of his work are produced in part by a relative and his wife, Barb. I want to ask Barb, no, come on, don't be shy. Tell me about the birch bark frames. How do you, where do you hunt for the birch and those sorts of things?
Right, Well, so I started this probably 20 years ago. I had worked at the post office for 22 years, and it's like, I need a new job. So the gallery opened in town, and Gary needed a framer. So I went to a retired cabinet maker, Dean, my buddy. He showed me how to make the basics. We like mission furniture, so I like the straight lines. And then, I just started going out whenever I see a dead tree. I have my utility knife. I run out of the car and strip it.
And there's a lot around here. We have some on our property.
Yeah.
But and it's tricky because you never want to take any birch off a live tree.
Right. No.
Plus, it wouldn't work. It has to age. It has to, it'll shrink on you if you don't. But the best birch, according to Barb, is the ones that fall down and are hung up and are there for a few years. And then you can peel them. And, some of them, my goodness, they're like the back side of the birch. It almost, the aroma is like root beer.
Gary Casagrane says that he and Barb love exploring the nearby mountains, rivers, lakes, and meadows. And he's known for his variety of subject matter, landscapes, wildlife, dogs, and portraits. Oh, this is this a self-portrait over here?
Yes.
I love it.
So what happened with this one is I'm always using Barb as a model. And I said, one of these days, okay, I'm going to be in one of my own paintings. So we were up in the high peaks. We were on Indian Head, which is a famous spot, right, overlooking the Ausable Lakes. She took a picture of me, a bunch of them, sitting on Indian Head on the rock there. The Gothics, the mountain, the Gothics was in the background. And I liked the picture, so we took a bunch of different things for references. I came up with this, and I like it because, again, as an artist, you're looking at things differently. It's not just because it's not really a portrait of me, it's a figure in a landscape, right? But the texture in this and the variety is pretty cool. And like I said, I usually write something about each piece. And so this time we got the idea, why don't we put the text right into the frame? So it explains, the name of the painting is The Artist, the Gothics. And it explains the whole thing, the process of how it happened. So painting is a blending of inner musical visions with visual reality. It is a symphony of contrasts, from the manipulating and varying of musical notes in one sense against the textures, edges, and movements of brushstrokes in another sense. It's thick and thin, it's hard and soft, it's direction and rhythm, it's warm and cool, It's these contrasting elements performing into illusions of light that bring paintings alive. Far from recording the world with electronic and mechanical imaging, human painting captures power, passion, emotion, and individual feelings. From the eye to the mind, from the heart to the hand, to the brush and the paint. It's human contact. It's individual contact that flows from feelings to a visual statement. Painting is creating. Painting is performing, locked in time. Painting is visual music. It is a visual performance recorded for all to enjoy. Now, just as a good musical tune is not improved by adding more and more notes just for the sake of making it more complex, more sound doesn't necessarily mean better music. So is true with creating a painting. More brushstrokes, more detail, more complex composition doesn't necessarily mean better paintings. It could obscure and overload the eye with unneeded information. Good composition and uncluttered brushstrokes are essential to a fine visual symphony. More can be just that. More. But the unwritten rule applies. Less is more. The question is, where the less and where the more? That's the key to fine art. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. A tread whistle is blowing.
Gary is a bit of a Renaissance man. He loves art, photography, volleyball, mountain biking, and music, which is also reflected in his work, which he compares to musical compositions. Over a plate of homemade cookies in their living room, Gary grabs one of his vintage Martin guitars for an impromptu recital.
Look at ocean, where she moves. She drags me around like an old caboose. I'm telling you boys, that girl's the same. My baby thinks she's a dream.
Cassegrain says, sometimes I believe that I am a musician trapped within an artist's body. The brush stroke is music to the eyes, and individual strokes make individual notes. Being able to control them makes you a musician of paint. Tupper Arts will host Gary Cassegrain's Adirondack-inspired exhibit, nearly 70 pieces of his work, through September 4th. There's an opening reception for the show tonight from 5 to 7:30. Gary will unveil some of his newest works starting at 5:30. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Todd Moe.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on NCPR. Time now is 8:28. What a lovely piece you did, Todd. I'm Monica Sandreski here with Todd Moe. And in the last minute or so of the show, what we're going to do is get pumped for tonight's show in Saranac Lake. The noise rock punk band Gorilla Toss is performing at Party on the Patio at the Waterhole. It's free. The show starts at 6. It's real. It's happening. This is their song, Can I Get the Real Stuff?
That's it for Northern Light for this Thursday. It's August 10th.
I'm Monica Sandreski. Todd, thanks so much for humoring me for this song. Northern Light Morning Edition continues in just a minute. I'm Monica Sandreski.
I'm Todd Moe. Be well.